Adam, you wanted to talk about that ROM disassembly that I've been working on.
Oh, well, I wanted you to talk about it.
You
I
wanted me to
haven't had a
talk
chance
about
to look at it. I I know that behind the scenes you were saying you were talking with some people who are going to be looking at it or have looked at it. Is that
Well,
right?
Jeff looked at it
Okay.
and spent some quality time with it. So I'll tell you, how that sort of came about. There's a ROM disassembly that Ian Logan and somebody else whose name escapes me did for the Spectrum, and that was probably done in 83-ish or so. And at some point between the publication of that and the present, a whole bunch of folks retyped it, and you can go get a much prettier version on the internet in places, and I think I'm almost positive that it's also available as straight text file. So coincidentally with that, I want to say Alvin Albright did a revised version of the technical manual and took out a bunch of stuff and put in a disassembly of the 2068 ROMs in the end of it. And he did this in Word, and that's available on archive. I'll put a link in the comments. But it's not a very.
Is that based on the one that I first pointed out?
I think so.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. It used to be available in the Yahoo groups as text files. And so I took those two things and brought them into Pages on the Mac and started to do some cleanup and trying to get the format, reasonable, right? And then one of the things, and you made a comment about how it would not be easy to reassemble the ROMs from this. And yeah, I realized
Correct,
that
yeah.
because one of the things that I wanted was all of the jumps and the calls, all of the things that usually point to a machine address. I wanted it to point to the label, so I didn't have to constantly go back and forth trying to figure out what is this. I wanted it to say, jump to this routine, right? And you could, do some magic and reassemble from that. But there are just whole, as they say in the Holy Grail, huge tracts of land that are undocumented in the XROM, right? And it's all that bank switching stuff, and all of this sort of mystery code, and some folks did some work on it a little bit. And there was a guy named Wes Brzezowski, I believe. There's two Z's in there. Who wrote a 5-part article series for, I think it was for Time Designs, where he sort of tried to reverse engineer what the bank expansion unit would look like in terms of hardware by reverse engineering the software in the expansion ROM. And so he did this really nice detailed walkthrough of sections of the expansion ROM. There's flow charts that he did that are really, really tiny and kind of hard to see. And he did a really great job. I mean, there's all sorts of interesting things in there, like the communication to whatever chip would have lived in the BEU was done a nibble at a time, 4 bits at a time, instead of a whole word at a time. And why that was a mystery, right? So I took Wes's work and extracted as much as I could and used that to document the expansion ROM. I took there was some other folks, Bob Orfelt, who you had found, and Lloyd Drager from the Michigan SMUG. It was the maybe Southern Michigan User Group. Oh no, Sinclair Michigan User Group. Anyway, Lloyd Drager did a disassembly but his is all in decimal, which is a pain. And Bob Orfeld did a disassembly, and it's just a straight uncommented disassembly where he just marked out sections. But I used the two of those as a kind of check and balance against what I already had, right? Because there's a couple errors that have crept into various places. So I think I have corrected, I would say 99% of the errors. And as I did more work on documenting it, I understood better what was happening. I was able to contribute new knowledge to this thing. And then Jeff Mazur sent me this Timex programmer's super secret document.
That thing is amazing. What I don't understand is how it's been hidden, quote, for all these years, and how no one else has come forward with it. It seems like
where is it? Where is it?
It's I'll include a link. It's on archive now, and I do believe that oops, I'm using the wrong mouse. I got two computers going. I do believe it's listed on the website. Let me go to the T's in the documents. I'll have to double check, but I'll include the link in the comments. So this was a document that was written for, programmers that wanted to convert stuff written for the Spectrum for the 2068, or to know how to write something for the 2068 using some of its magic featers.
Right, like it talked about like using a cartridge port, I think, and
right. Oh, and so one of the interesting things that I loved about that was there's a byte in the beginning of every cartridge. There's like 8 bytes that define what kind of cartridge it is, and the starting memory location and stuff like that. And there's 1 byte that tells the computer rather, whether this is an AROS or an LROS, and whether it's a basic or a machine language thing. And then 2 of the options are, one of them is Pascal, and what was the other option? I can't remember. But that's totally new knowledge. I've never seen that piece of information before about how these one of the intended language options was Pascal. I don't know how that.
What would that have meant? Like, it wouldn't have been compiled Pascal? What is
right,
that?
exactly. So that's the thing, because so that's the problem, is that if you wanted to implement another language, you have to do it yourself. You have to do the ROM yourself, and you can make calls back to the basic ROM. It's going to be a little tricky, and you're going to have to do a lot of switching, and actually a lot of that kind of switching takes place in the XROM. There's a piece of code in the XROM that is used all the time, literally at least a dozen times, that sets up a switch to the home ROM to do something, and then come back and complete steps.
David, we definitely need to link to that document, because
oh god, it's wonderful. And it's only 90 pages, but it's just fascinating reading. And I think Wes alluded to this in like the 5th article in his series, because he said that somebody leaked a document, and he called that I don't remember exactly what he called that person, but someone leaked a document that sounded very similar to what this was, and it described how the bank switching would work and stuff.
Well, it doesn't seem like it even needed to be leaked. I mean, it seems like at the time, if you wanted to be a third-party developer, they would have just sent it to you. Like, that's, I mean, from my overview of the document, it looked like it just.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a little harder to sort of get a hold of, though. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
At the time.
At the end of it too, there's, besides just talking about how to program the system, they talk about how to, like, their rules on how to, for third-party software. Like how, like, what they accept and what they won't accept and things like that. I was like, wow, they really wanted to press you almost like Nintendo did later on. But that was pre-Nintendo.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When somebody else is talking, I will go dig that thing up and put it in our chat for for immediacy. So and I don't know who prompted me to put this thing up on Google Docs, but somebody asked, maybe it was Jeff asked a question or something, and I stuck it up there. And Jeff, you said you found it immediately helpful. I don't know if Jeff, your mic might be off, Jeff.
Am I on?
You're on now.
Yeah, I did find it very helpful. It's nice to see something more like the Ian Logan ZX81 documentation, where you can get some detailed information on what's going on. Because I've gone through some of the XROM routines, specifically the tape routines.
Yeah.
And that bank switching code is such a convoluted mess.
Isn't it bizarre?
That stacking things and to call into home ROM, but
yeah.
It's slick.
Yeah, it's really amazing. But yeah, like you said, it's a mess.
Now, do you mean it's a mess like as disassembling it, or after you look at the code, is it like, oh, no wonder they did it that way? I mean, because I haven't looked at it like that.
Well, like I said, there's a standard piece of code that gets used again and again and again, and really the only thing that changes in it is there's some setup in terms of what routine you're going to call in the home ROM. But you need to go to the home ROM and do some kind of manipulation and then come back. So you have to push all kinds of stuff up onto the stack, and then you have to push stuff onto the stack for whatever the routine is. And then when you come back, you've got to roll all those things back. And so there are all of these things that could be, 20 bytes worth of machine code that are 100 or 110, because it's wrapped with this this call back to the home ROM. And then there's just the whole messed up bank switching thing, because Timex defined a couple of registers that would exist somewhere, and the registers actually exist. Exactly, the registers exist at 4 locations in memory. At 4,000, this is in hexadecimal, 4,000, 8,000, A000, and C000, but they're only referred to as 40, 80, A0, and C0. And in order to talk to whatever this potential external hardware was, you sort of had to suspend operations for a bit. So whatever was there, right? Because some of those addresses are in the middle of program memory. So whatever's there, you have to save it and put your values in, and then shift them out to this, fantasy hardware, and then restore it all back into place. It's very complicated, but it would have worked had they had time and money.
So obviously, maybe not obviously. So nothing was able to take advantage of that kind of stuff.
No,
yeah.
Unfortunately. And then there are nothing ever actually calls it, and the some of the pieces of code are actually incomplete. There's some obvious sections where it goes 2-3 bytes, and then there's a jump right out of the routine, and there's more stuff after that meant to work, but it just jumps right out.
And there's only one ROM for the 2068, right? I mean, there was never an update.
There was never an update to that, right? Although the technical manual alluded to that, and that you could, something would be forthcoming, and there was a byte in the, I think it's in the home ROM. There's a byte that is meant to be a version counter, and it starts out 255, and that would have, been changed as new ROMs could have been added, and that little a little bit of X right in the middle of the 2068 motherboard. I'll show you. So there's a little thing right here, and this.
You mean a literal X?
I mean a literal X. Yes, I'm not kidding. depending upon how you jumper this, you are selecting for a mask ROM or an EEPROM. Yeah, you have to do a little rework for an EEPROM, but basically, yeah, they at least had some planning for that. So
Well,
Timex just
now
needs
that
to get back on the horn and make us a new ROM.
Before we get too far into that, if we continue with that, I know that there was Tim H over here.
Yeah.
You joined us because you wanted to talk about your keyboard. And I know we also have Ingo, who probably has more update on his keyboard. I don't know if he's done more in the last couple of weeks. But so we have two people working on keyboards here. So I don't know if there's other agenda going on, David.
No, actually, I wanted to hand it off to both Tim and Ingo, because Ingo and I talked yesterday about his keyboard adventures, as it were.
Well,
and
maybe
I
we can
mentioned
have
that Tim, wanted to join us as well.
Maybe we can have Tim introduce himself, because I don't think he's joined us, right? Or maybe he has. I haven't been on all the meetings, but
Tim,
yeah,
you want to give us a shout out and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, I've been working on YouTube for, I don't know, quite a while. So my partner told me to stop bothering her and join the group. So here I am. Yeah, hey, I'm down in New Zealand, other side of the world.
Awesome.
And yeah. So yeah, we all got locked down a couple of years ago, and I mean, my backstory is the same as a lot of everyone. We sort of saved up a bit of pocket money back as a teenager and bought that stage of ZX81, and then 40 years later rediscovered it when we got locked down and it was sitting in the garage. So to sort of revive it and upgrade it, and now I've just got overly obsessed. So yeah, we'll talk more about myself. I'll let Ingo chat about his update before I sort of steal the show.
So Ingo, it's all you.
Yeah, I don't mind having Tim tell us about his, because you guys have been listening to me for several meetings now. You guys might be sick of looking at my face.
Yeah, I'm sick of you, Ingo. Get out of here. You're out of here.
Either way, I really
Ingo, love this T-shirt. That's all.
Thank you. Yeah. So I guess I've been working on something a bit different. I just posted a new blog article about a breakout board that I built, and that kind of leads into what I've been working on, and that's a way to interface the keyboard through the expansion port instead of modifying the
Ingo, do you mind if I just ask you a quick question? Could you give some background for the people who are here who don't know what you're working on? And because you're working on a system not for the 2068 or something, it's for, why don't you go ahead and just maybe give it 1 minute history?
Sure. All right, so I have a TS1000 and my brother has a ZX81, and I took on a project to build a prototype mechanical keyboard using mechanical key switches, and that keyboard is right here, and I used water slide decals that I designed and made in Inkscape, and put them onto plain black keycaps using Gatoron blue mechanical key switches, laser cut a panel mounting plate from 3mm acrylic using a laser cutter at my makerspace here in Troy, New York, and wired it all up, hand wired all the key switches using rainbow ribbon cable, one of my favorite things in the world, and put some DuPont connectors on the end of the ribbon cable, so I can plug it straight into the ZX81 or the TS1000 main board. But I thought there's probably a lot of people that don't want to desolder those original headers off of their boards like I did and leave them original. And a few meetings ago, David shared a schematic that he redrew in Easy EDA, and it was from an article in the Sum magazine from September of, what was it, 85, I think. That's on archive.org.
I'll put the link in.
And by the way, David, since we spoke, I put all that information plus a link to that in my blog post. So once I publish that, that'll also be there too. But a really cool article, and it basically shows how easy it is to interface an external keyboard. The only thing was I didn't have one of the 74 series chips, a 74365, in my inventory. So I've been playing with programming GALs, and actually I have the test circuit here on a breadboard. So rather than trying to dig up that specific 74 series chip, I just went ahead and figured out the logic.
What is the 365?
So it's a hex bus driver. So it's basically 6 buffers that you can that are tri-state. So you can disable them all so that they go high impedance on their outputs, or you can enable them, and then of course whatever's on the inputs, if you've got a low or a high signal on the input of each buffer, it will put the same on its output. And so that way you can the way I understand it is you could prevent having bus contention on the data bus by only enabling the key switch signals onto the data bus when, first of all, the 0-bit on the address bus has to be low. The read signal from the Z80 processor has to be low, and your IO request has to be low. So with all 3 of those signals low, it's safe for the keyboard to deposit its switch information onto the data bus. And that's what that 365 does. But since I didn't have one, I just had to program the GAL to duplicate that. And you're really only using 5 bits for the keyboard anyway, so you don't need all 6. So I just wrote 5 tri-state outputs, and I used those 3 input pins. So your A0, read, and IO request, and it worked. I I hooked it up to this little interface board or breakout board that I made. I can show you guys more about this if you're interested, because I actually did post this. My most recent post that I published was on that breakout board. And so, yeah, I hooked up my keyboard to the expansion port, and it worked right out of the gate. I was tickled.
So one of the other advantages of that buffer is that you can use this almost as long a ribbon cable to connect the keyboard as you want without loading down the Z80 bus. So, Tim, we're curious about how you got your keycaps done.
Yeah, yeah, we'll start. We'll go backwards because this is sort of like a side project of a side project. So, yeah, there's been a few people that have done keyboards. I think David, you've got David Stevenson's one from the ZXT, and there's a massive group in Germany called the ZX team that built their own custom keyboard, quite cool as well. And so when I went to do it, I had a look around, and it turns out there's like a keyboard subculture that's created over about the last 10 years, especially in the last few years. And it's a whole thing. So making a board and putting keys on it and then trying to manufacture a case, it's all sort of it's actually an industry now. You can buy the cases, you can buy pre-made boards, you can get all the stuff. So, and it's and indeed Amazon selling mechanical keyboards of sort of smaller form factor to 60%. So I got a 60% keyboard, which sort of has 63 keys, which fits the ZX sort of 40 key layout quite well. And then I managed to move all the all the punctuation characters onto their own keys, so they're not sort of tied up with a with a sort of a function key in a letter or a thing. So yeah, where did I get the keys? There's a company called WASD Keyboards, WASD Keyboards, and they let you do custom keycaps. In fact, I've got a link to the particular one I did. Where's it gone?
And Tim, I assume they do like custom cherry and other keycaps.
Yeah, they're all the cherry and the Gatoron and all the various other keys all have the same stem.
Yeah.
So they do. It's like a little plus stem. So they do the key keycaps for that. Oh, there it is. And so I'll just drop it in the chat.
That's awesome.
So
so that's the particular one that I got a copy of. So this is an 84. There's a thing called a keycron. There's a whole pile of people doing custom keyboards, and you can get it on group buys for them, and they do sort of specific sort of small runs of them. And the keycron's one of them, and it's 84 keys, and I just ended up only using 63 of them. And so you design the keyboard with you download a SVG, a file, a template, edit it with Inkscape. Interesting, as Ingo said. Draw it the way you want, and then send them the file, and they'll they print it with like a UV mechanism. So it's sort of I'll drop a. Can I drop pictures into the chat?
or you can share your screen if you want.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Screen's a good screen.
Because then the folks who watch the recording will get to see it.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
David, you're so smart. You're so smart.
Yeah, so this is the keyboard sort of just close up because the video sort of doesn't give it justice. And my intention here wasn't to sort of replicate, although you could. Ingo's done a wonderful job of replicating the ZX keyboard. My intention was sort of to want to take on it. And can you see my screen?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It looks really good.
Yeah, and so it's a really nice job. The keyboard community is a bit anti-UV ink because if you're using it as a daily driver, you sort of read the ink off. But you know, the idea of decals or the David Stevenson keyboard, the ZXT uses stickers. But I mean, they're in a worse situation. Ingo had to sort of put some coating of paint on it. David Stevenson stickers, they sort of slowly come off. If you ever look at some old Memotechs that've got stickers on them, they're sort of like often missing one or two stickers. So, I mean, if you're not using this as a daily driver, you probably won't wear through the thing. I mean, the keyboard enthusiast double shot keys where they injection mold the lettering and then they injection mold the casing granite. So it's actually a coloured plastic. The writing is actually plastic. You'd have to wear through the top coating of plastic to wear them out. So they last a lot longer. But this sort of thing. And
well, I do want to say, Tim, that you mentioned the Memotech stickers wearing off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are like 40 years old now. So if they've only lost one or two keys, I think they're okay.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So yeah, this isn't a must, but it's quite a nice effect. I mean, it looks like a regular keyboard and quite high res. And yeah, so good point. The stickers do last a reasonable time. So I could share a video. So where's this fit into the bigger thing? When I got my resurrected my ZX81, which was like a whole process. Interesting enough, the ULA that was broken on it is actually made by another guy in New Zealand. There's a replacement called the VLA 81. It's made by a guy like a couple of hours away from here. So when I fixed all that, I thought, what does it need? And I thought it needs a USB keyboard and it needs a HDMI screen on it. So I've done a little separate project for that, which put an internal USB port on the ZX and an internal HDMI port. And then I thought the worst thing about that is that you're still using a regular USB keyboard. So I'm just looking at a key map to figure out what to do. So I'll build my own keycaps. And then I built an entire keyboard, a 60% keyboard with aluminium mills, anodized aluminium case, and all the flash keys. And I sort of quite liked it so much that I couldn't bear to swap the keycaps on it for just this purpose. So I bought a cheap Amazon keyboard to be my USB keyboard. And so that's this one. The interesting thing is that some of these characters here, I've put the less than and equal to and the greater than equal on some of the keys. And so then you need some way of making the emulator aware of that, because if you hit the shift on this here, it's a brace character, and the emulators and other things just totally ignore it. And so I built a little device that you put the keyboard on one side and the computer on the other, and it maps the keystrokes. So it then presses the keystrokes the emulator is expecting for those bits of pieces. And I can do a demo.
So Tim, I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you, but you're talking about using an emulator as well. So what are you referring to there? So you're using emulator and hardware?
Yeah. So the USB keyboard can plug straight into the ZX81 via my little interface, and it can also just work on the PC. It's just plugged into the PC as on the emulation. So I could put a headset on if you want a better audio.
So Tim, what interface, what are you using to do the USB to, ZX81 mapping?
Yeah. So maybe I'll flip screens. Let's do that. Where do you swap this thing? Maybe I'll have to stop sharing. So struggling to drive the software.
Did you want to stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
I will see if I can figure out how. There we go.
Right. There you go.
Okay.
So if I flip over to another webcam, so there's the keyboard itself on shaky cam, and it plugs into that over there, which is a device that I built. It's off I built a custom circuit board, and there's a couple of off-the-shelf USB microprocessors. So it comes in on the white keyboard on the left.
I noticed it says it's called the Babel key, as in Babelfish.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that right? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's an ode to Hitchhiker's Guide,
Yeah.
because it converts from one USB to another. And so
You're sort of cutting out, Tim.
oh, sorry, I'll put on a headset.
There we go.
Let me do that. Hang on. I'll
So Ingo, you guys need to talk.
Yeah, I already sent Tim a message in the chat with my email address so that he and I can hook up and share some ideas, because I love what he's got going on there.
And I just want to say for a second, Don had to leave us. One of the reasons I asked Don to join us is because he's working on a PCB replacement for the membrane keyboard on the ZX Spectrum, right? Which is the exact same thing as the 1500. And so I asked him on Facebook, I said, do you plan on making this available to folks, especially because, there's people with 1500s here that are going to need that. And his little circuit board, it looks like it's going to support little mini push buttons. And I think it might go underneath the membrane, which would be really awesome. But I don't know that it's going to fit underneath the little metal plaque or whatever you call it. So Tim, are you back with us? I bet he's working out.
Yeah, it looks like he's getting his headphones and his audio
headphones
set up.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the Babelfish thing. That's really cool.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah. I'm really curious to. I'm really curious to see how he maps that to the 8 and 5.
yeah.
Pin out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, but back on the PC speaker, it seems to be. Sorry if it's choppy. So yeah, this device plugs into the PC, so I can run emulation with it. I'll do a demo of that. I've got a couple of keystrokes of the Control P that's on the 81 emulation. You can see my screen share. Let's screen share. Screen share. Right, are we sharing?
There you go.
Cool. So yeah, so now I the
So that's pretty quick.
Yeah, so because the emulation emulates real hardware, and it'll only read a character every 100 milliseconds. So if you've ever plugged the actual mechanical keyboard into either hardware or the real thing, it's quite frustrating. So I did a keyboard buffer, and so you can sort of type ahead of it, and you can disable the keyboard buffer with a few buttons because you don't want a keyboard buffering on games. You want because the games quite often directly read from the keys, and so you can hit a few keys to flip off the buffer, and so what it does is it keyboard buffers, and then it feeds it through at 100 milliseconds keystroke down and 100 milliseconds keystroke up.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so that's that. Now, your question, David, is the next one. So this is emulation, and I know the team here really they're not emulator people, maybe one or two people are into real hardware. And so this week I thought, what the hey, I'll bang together a quick circuit so I can plug this into the expansion circuit. And if we follow the wire, there's a big mess of wires there, which is a little interface circuit that a Canadian guy, Wolf Reiter, did. Wonderful. He managed to do it in 2 chips. Wonderful design. And what that's on it is it's reading from a Babel key over here through a wire into a little microcontroller, and then it's talking to the keyboard interface. And to make the keyboard's made up of rows of and columns, and so what there is between that is a matrix. It's a matrix of rows and columns. There's a matrix switch. They call them cross connect switch.
Could I request that you show us the mess of wires and take off the screen sharing? There we go. Excellent. I can see it. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, that's the big mess of wires. Let me get a bit zoom in a bit closer. I mean, I should have made it onto a board, but I just did it this week. And so there's a cross connect switch in there that the microcontroller chats to, and it's basically pressing rows and columns. And then there's a little interface that goes backward through the expansion port and onto the actual ZX. And then that is up there, further back. And so if I hit it, and print it below, but it's up the top of the screen. And yeah, there's the and so that's the keyboard. So it's talking through the Babel key, and it can either send the keystrokes to the PC or via that little wire to the little interface circuit, and that then chats. Not dissimilar to Ingo's thing. It listens for the appropriate address and then drops the keystroke onto the ZX. And all of this, just as a little, like I said, this is just a real killerfish. That box there, the one with the red button, is a project from an English guy that originally wanted to put HDMI onto his BBC Micro, and so but that's ballooned out to basically support HDMI on all sorts of computers, all sorts of retro computers. And what it does is it samples the video signal. In this case, the yellow wire coming in the top's the composite or composite, however it's said. It samples it on a pixel basis, sort of redigitizes it, and then puts it out as HDMI. So this is actually an HDMI monitor, and it's pixel perfect. When the screen does, it's a bit blurred because of the thing, but it's actual perfectly formed pixels because it's sampling at exactly the right point. And if it was a color computer, it supports all the various color computers. It also repalletizes it and then puts it out as the appropriate colored palette. I've got it working with my old Amstrad CPC, and it works with a whole pile of about a dozen or so different machines. And so that gives me my HDMI out. The USB converter stuff gives me my USB in. All of this I've got as an internal board, but because the team here is sort of more into plugging things in than solving things on the board, I just banged together the quick external interface to sort of show what it looks like.
Tim, what's the name of that circuit? I know it, but I just can't pull it up.
Which one?
The video circuit.
It's called, annoyingly not properly named, RGB to HDMI. I can find a link for it.
Yeah, and there's a funny name for the GitHub repository for that. I'll see if I can find that. I know where it is.
Well, I'll say the box with the red button looks like if you press it, you're going to destroy something.
No, Adam, that's the internet in that box.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
I just hunted it down. Where's the wiki for this thing? Wiki. Right, I've just dropped the link into the channel. Chat. What it is it's a guy who goes by the name of Hoblet. Ian's done a chunk of a separate guy that's done a chunk of the tweets. It's a little CPLD that does the sampling, and there's a Raspberry Pi that does the HDMI. So wrong one. Sorry, get back to me. So that gives me HDMI out, USB in. The USB I did two ways. The USB I've got so you can plug a keyboard in, but it also USBs into the PC. And that allows you to sort of remote control the ZX from the PC. And it also lets you download code because, downloading over a tape interface is crazy. And so it downloads a little assembler stuff that then does chats to do the high-speed download. And so that's the sort of USB to the PC side, and then there's all sort of Python code you can run at the center. You can just sort of send a file, just give it a P file, and it'll transfer it down the sort of USB serial port to the ZX and then run it.
Wow, that's pretty fantastic.
I have a general question for you, Tim, if you don't mind going back in time like 40 years. So I don't know anything about the ZX Spectrum or the 81 over in New Zealand. Can you tell us like what it was like over there, like 40 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, we were very English based, so we got all the English computers largely. I mean, we did get the Atari 400s and 800s at the time, and I had a friend that rather than get his dad to buy him a car, got him to buy him an Atari at the time because they're quite expensive over here. And so I saved up money working sort of after hours at a shop to save up enough for the little ZX81. So that the bigger machines were in $1,000, and back then you could buy a car for hundreds of dollars. So we saw a BBC Micro at a show, and it was like that was $2,500, which was just like that was what mum and dad's car was. It was very expensive, and so the smaller machines were really the only thing optional for people like myself.
Were you part of a user group or anything like that?
No, this is the first contribution I've done to any group anywhere, anytime. So it was
it's never too late. It's never too late.
Yeah. My partner says, stop talking about this, contact these people. So yeah, I don't normally share either in any form, whether that's just chatting to people or blog posts or reply to things, or I just do my own little thing in my own little world. And
well, Tim,
it's fun to branch out.
I'm glad you found us.
Yeah,
that was awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit more to this sort of rabbit hole, but I mean, I just don't know. There's an entire like my intention is to build a whole ZX81 from scratch. So there's online articles to do 3D printed case, which is the top and the bottom.
Oh my gosh!
And so and that lets me print a case, and then just a little show but don't tell thing. I'm building a ZX from scratch with like surface mount components. No UI, and there's a whole sort of sub project around that as well.
Well, there's a way
I get obsessed.
Yeah, I guess so, but that in a good way. Now, you're rebuilding the ZX81 or not the 80? Because the 80 I know that they can do from component parts, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's a schematic you can just do that from off the shelf, sort of so-called jelly bean logic code and chips. Yeah. So this is the proper ZX81 with it's another of Wolf's designs. It's got bank switching and a pile of extra memory in it, and It's quite a good design. It does the high-res graphics and well, high-res 256 by 192, but high-res for the ZX. So,
is that his ZX97 design?
That's the 97. Yes, I've got that as SMD on a board just behind me.
Nice.
Which works fine. There's a bit of a bug with the high-res graphics on it, so I just could fix that.
Very cool.
And it sort of fits on a 10 by 10 board. I mean, the original ZX97 was spread across 3 PCBs. And as you saw from the little board that I made, that you can have a PCB made in China, but these are $2. And if you want them this week, they'll DHL it to them for $20, so $22 for 5 of these. So you can have a PCB made quite cheap. And the PCB on the ZX97 is like a 4-layer one, but then they're not that much more expensive. It's like $8 for 5. So yeah, that's the.
I'm guessing you're using JLC PCB.
That is them, yeah. But
Right.
PCB is the other option. They're the two big players in the. In the PCB is like $5 or $4 for 5 boards, and JLC is $2 for the first.
Yeah.
David, which one do you use?
I use JLC, and then I anxiously watch the shipment, leave China, or take forever to leave China, right? And then finally it hits DHL, and finally it, once it hits DHL, it moves a little quicker, but there's a long delay.
I feel for you. I use PCB Wave, same thing.
Yeah, you got to find something else to do for 2 weeks. Hey, so I want to ask Ryan Gray to give us a shout out. Tell us about yourself, Ryan. You might have to unmute.
Am I unmuted there?
You are.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just recently found you guys, and I've been more recently during pandemic times set up my workbench and started dragging stuff out of the garage, fixing it up, with the idea eventually I get to my the old computers, and I'd squirreled away quite a bit of stuff, it turns out. And yeah, I was just trying to plug up some of the TS1000s, and I got most of them had the problem with the keyboard. So, but I found some at estate sales, and
You found those recently and locally?
Yeah, just nearby. I was just trying out. They need some, like like this one. One half row's broken on the cable, that sort of thing. One for parts, a couple of old, books and things.
Oh, cool.
And
David, has that one archived? Come on, David. Come on.
Off the top of my head, come on.
Come on. Let us know.
Handbook, I don't know, but I bought some of those replacement somewhere, probably just one of those replacement remanufactured keyboards to hopefully put in. I have my original box from the from my 81. I also have lots of these old. You may remember all these things.
Yes.
Actually, I don't know what that is. What was that?
Oh yeah. Bring that back on just for a minute, Ryan.
The Gladstone.
Yeah, the Gladstone catalog.
I would send off for.
Yeah. So Ryan, can you hold it up so that the people can see the address, the street address?
Oh,
I think it's on the back. It should be on the back.
Yeah, there we
It
are.
should be 1580. Yeah, 1585 Kenmore Avenue. So Ryan,
Okay, yeah.
if I went out in my front yard and threw a rock really hard, I would hit that building.
Wow. Pretty cool. Yeah, original invoice there.
Oh dear.
You pay $49 bucks?
yeah.
Is that what that was? $49?
That's the RAM pack.
Oh, the
Yeah,
RAM
But
pack.
when the price dropped from 150 to 100, we could splurge to get the RAM pack. And yeah, so it's all the colors all worn off. I did a composite mod back in the day that I had to redo when I dug it out, and then that's when I found that the keyboard cable had all broken off. But yeah, I found out online there was like a lot of discussion about that. You know, they didn't realize Sinclair sold these in a US spec one. Okay, back in the day. I don't know if that's focused.
yeah.
You know, an NTSC, you know, this came out of, what was it, Nashua, New Hampshire?
Mhm.
Was the office. Yeah. And not long before Timex started selling them, the 1000s. What I tore off of the keyboard was this old accessory
Ah,
that I think at some point after my brother was using it, and I think my mom bought this because he didn't like those little keys. So it has like a little rubber dome.
oh, so that's a
You just
rubbery
really-
one.
You just stuck this down on the keyboard, so it kind of mangled it a bit trying to take it off, but because it'd been on there forever.
Does it actually function better or worse? It seems.
You know, that's debatable.
So Ryan, that one is, but the one you have is rubbery. And is there a little hard frame that sort of goes around the outside of it?
No,
That's just that.
just
okay.
that, and it had adhesive, and you stuck it right on it. It did have this overlay. I guess you
Okay.
could write some game stuff on it, and
So that one looks like, I think that's the second base.
so you could stick that over there, and I guess you could probably manage to put make stickers for some games on there, I suppose, or some maybe like a word processor or something.
So Ryan, there were two kinds of varieties of that. There was one made by a company called File 60, and it was all hard plastic, and the little buttons were hard plastic. And then there was another company called Second Base, which I think is the one that you have. I've never actually seen one of those before, so I had thought that it was just a black version of the File 61, but that's really cool to see that there was a rubbery keyboard instead of the hard plastic keyboard version.
Well, I guess actually this labeled, this lighter gray labeled area is actually a little thing that obviously they stuck over it. It's labeled.
I do have to say that seeing that makes me understand why Ingo and Tim are making their keyboards, because that is pretty horrible looking, I have to admit.
Yeah, somewhere down here, I did see, I can get it out. I sort of made my own back in the day. Apparently,
oh wow!
I just cut it out of a little piece of paper, and so you had like a little. It gave you something of a little tactile thing, and then I just stuck that over there. So that was a funny. I'd forgotten about that.
So did you and your brother each have a different ZX81?
No, no, he just wanted something to play with, right? And so I had a 2068 after that, and like all the rest of us, I had eagerly anticipated what was coming in that promised famous photo of all the accessories that were coming. And I'd followed the British market quite a bit. I actually had a friend who was from England, and his dad went back and forth all the time. And so he would bring us stuff. We'd say, okay, we want some. He'd pick up some of the magazines. So I got a few of the British mags, a few issues, and in fact, I probably have that here. Of I know I've got one. Yeah, here we go. Well, here's a couple. So with the old Sinclair user. And I think this is later. You know, it was all about the games. That was the things that.
That must be a much later one, because I see on the front cover it's talking about the Sam Coupe or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird machine.
This is this is January 1990. Which I think I picked up much later. Yeah. And then I have a few issues of Sync and that. And then, so I dug out my old box of cassette tapes. This is maybe one of my questions I was trying to answer. So here you go. I had this big box of cassette tapes I'd picked up surplus.
Oh my.
And,
look at all those cassettes, Adam.
That's what I would put my programs on. So they're kind of crap quality. I do have a few commercial ones. There was a Silversoft compiler for the 81.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that would have been something from England that your friend's dad brought back with him, or?
Yes. Yeah, that was one of them.
That's a good friend, you know.
So yeah, it was kind of funny because then he wound up having a TS1000 as the British guy, of course.
That's funny.
When he lived here. But yeah, there's the I forgot. Maybe I picked these up probably at various sales later, or I'd go some of the thrift shops. So I've got flight simulator program and a couple others. One that he did bring back that we really anticipated was Michael Orwin. This is cassette 4. Had a bunch of these games you'd find in that Gladstone catalog that sold for $10 each. Here was on a cassette for like maybe 15 pounds or something.
Oh wow.
So there's a bunch on here.
I have a question
load.
About that software that you're talking about, and maybe I sort of brought it up in a group this week after David posted the software catalog of the early Timex 1000 software. And there was some weird stuff in there, like how to build your own solar panels, and not how to build them, but like how to design your own solar panels. And this was stuff that was supposed to come out from Timex, or at least supposedly from the catalog. Like, did that kind of stuff come out? Like, how extensive was the catalog?
So there was some vaporware.
Okay. Okay.
And especially on the 2068 side, there were things that were announced that did not come out. And a couple of those things, there was a woman, Marty Warner Dubé, who worked at Timex, and when Timex sort of shut down, she and her husband and her dad had a company called Games to Learn By, and they were able to release some of that software that did not get released by Timex. So Ryan, I want to give Stuart a plug here for a second. If you want to put a moderately better keyboard on your 1000s, I think that Stuart has he has a little circuit board that's got these little micro switch buttons on it that might work well underneath that rubber keyboard thing you have, because it's designed for the Spectrum. Is that right, Stuart? Or is it designed for the 1000?
Well, what I'm selling on eBay, all these products come from Ginger Electronics in Germany. And basically, he's put tactile switches on a printed circuit board. And this is a direct replacement for the ZX81 or the TS1000
Okay,
keyboard.
good.
And it has, it's very, you don't need the rubber, because what happens is you have the keyboard with the tactile switches, and you get a great, they're very easy to push. You get a lot of tactile feedback from them. I guess it's probably got a disc that inverts, a little metal thing or something. So they're very clicky. And then he just lays a membrane on top of that, which gets you the key labels. It's very similar to the top layer of the original ZX81 TS1000 keyboards. The only thing is, I guess the enter key is the ZX81 as opposed to the TS1000. So other than that key being labeled differently, but functionally the same, I'd say they're not marginally better. I'd say the keyboards are excellent. It doesn't change the form factor of the of your computer, and they're great. If anybody here I forget, I think I asked something like $35 for them on eBay, but if anybody in the group wants one closer to my cost, which is probably about half that, you can let me know, and I'd be happy to get some out at cost, just so people within the group get some additional opinions other than mine. But I think they're great. I mean, you can type very comfortably, very quickly, and you don't have to push hard, because you know immediately you've pushed hard enough. So I think they're a great solution. Yeah, and they go right into the same connectors. Yeah, so now I mean, people mentioned repairing 1500s. He has made those keyboards, and actually had that keyboard. I mean, I don't know anybody with a Z80 with a bad keyboard, but he actually has the same underlying printed circuit board, and he has a different cover if you have a Z80 instead of a ZX81 or 1000.
Okay.
But I don't bother to sell it because I haven't put it up, but I have them. I have them here. Likewise, he's used the same technology to build keyboards for the Spectrum, the original Spectrum, and that layout fits the TS1000, 1500, I'm sorry. So if anybody has Spectrums, TS1000s in need of replacement keyboards, I actually have that keyboard. You have to put that under he makes an overlay for the Spectrum, but he doesn't make an overlay printed for the 1500. But if you keep your rubber keycaps and sit that on the 1500, this board will fit under it and repair your 1500. And I haven't installed, mostly I haven't put that up on eBay because I don't like to actually sell anything that I haven't installed myself. I put his keyboards on several ZX81s, and they're great. I do have some 1500s that have bad keyboards, but that's a project for the summer. My tiny one-bedroom Brooklyn apartment I've hit the limits of how much stuff I can do here and keep my marriage together. Between her yarn collection, her knitting, and my computer stuff, we're kind of balanced. But actually, we opened the summer cottage a week ago, and we'll start going up regularly, by the end of the month. And then I have a lot of, this summer, I expect to play with stuff that I haven't played with in, like 35 years. I have a large, dozens of ZX81s that I'm probably going to wholesale, just change the keyboards and put 16K RAMs in it and sell them as working, especially because they're ZX81s, they're channel 33 UHF. I'm just going to convert all the, them all to composite video. I was very interested in that project that was shown with the HDMI output that actually samples the video and reconstructs a perfect signal. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing. But like Tim says, it needs a Raspberry Pi. It needs there's a separate sort of interface board for different computers. There's like a 6-bit and a 12-bit and a whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, but there are really tiny form factor processors these days that have a high enough clock, to do what the Raspberry Pi is doing. Where I imagine, it may not happen right away, but somebody else is going to end up doing the same thing, I'm sure, where they'll actually sample and reconstruct it. And who knows, they may have a Bluetooth in there, and you'll just take your Bluetooth keyboard and regular keyboard, and it'll remap everything. And
well, I think that segues into Jeff's project.
Huh?
I think that segues into Jeff's project.
Yeah.
Just Stuart, I've actually got a side project doing exactly that. The Raspberry Pi runs at like 50 degrees. It's not the sort of thing you want to put inside a ZX. So I've got a separate project to do that with one of the modern high-speed microprocessors to do exactly what you're saying, without a CPLD and without a Raspberry Pi operating system sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah, the processors are getting so tiny and fast that they can sample at a sufficient speed to do that. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to see some wonderful stuff. Basically, if somebody likes to, I don't really support the 2068 very much. I have a few books left, but I don't have much for it. But I still have quantities of things for the ZX81. And so I picked up these German products, which I think are really high quality, that resolve at least getting you the composite video mod, and now a decent keyboard, I think. The big thing missing, and I'm repeating myself for the people who have been on the previous meetings, but the thing that I think is really missing is somebody writing a program for your phone, for your iPhone or your Android phone, to replace the tape recorder, basically, and load software into ZX81s. I'd love to see somebody come up with that. I mean, there are some things with Arduinos and little LED displays for, loading things. But logically, to me, the solution, almost everybody who's a techie, I think, is like me and has a drawer full of previous version phones, their previous iPhone or their previous Galaxy or whatever. And I think it's just a matter of time. Somebody should, and I have a signal generator. If I just want square sign and for testing purposes, I have a signal generator program on my iPhone. So why, should be able to put out, if somebody can get low enough, understands, the phone well enough, there should be a way to, I don't know about D to A coming back in, but certainly putting programs out, I think that's, should be a project somewhere people working on. Have you approached the tape load issue in different ways, or do you have your favorite device for loading software into?
I've personally, if I can answer that question, I just use an old laptop and I just save straight to the laptop, and I don't even usually, really, I don't have to have any issues with it. I can take old tapes, or not tapes, but stuff that has been already digitized, and put it into a WAV file, and then just play it back from my laptop, and it works fine. And also recording too. I record programs, not that I've written a long program, but just like to test it, and I can just save it as a WAV file and just bring it right back in without any issues whatsoever. And I don't know if that would work on the phone, but it might on some phones anyway.
And that USB thing that I did, it presents a serial port to the PC, and you and the little Python code you can run on them PC. It just X modems it. It presents an X modem board, and you can just send a file with that. So you can use a terminal emulator, but I've got a little Python script that you can just give it a file name, and it opens the connection, X modems down, and
so that's at least much faster. That's the problem with doing a WAV file. It's like real time.
Well, even if it was digital, it would be the same rate. It's just that it downloads a little stub program, and then that stub program listens at a higher rate than the standard tape routines. So yeah, and there's a project called WESPI, WESPI, and the guy puts a ESP32, another processor out there inside the thing, and it does the same sort of process, but it also has a Wi-Fi interface, and so it drops a program onto the ZX that then presents a menu that you can then go select stuff online to download, and the little ESP32 boards are like $6 or something. So yeah, that's another option.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out. That sounds great.
I'll find a link to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter about that ZX WESPI on the Sinclair ZX World forums, and quite a few people are using those. It's one of the things I was thinking about checking out too.
I just dropped a link into the chat for that, for the GitHub page for that project.
Doing a time check here, I just want to say we've got about 45 minutes left, and I think Jeff was going to give us an update, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask Jeff if he could update us on anything that he's done.
Basically, I had to take a few days off because other things came up. Life came in, but right now I'm working on the PCB design for the interface that I'm planning. I've been going back up to DigiKey, and even some of these parts that are obsolete are starting to become unavailable. So I figure I'd better get a design down and reduce to practice so I can actually build something. But essentially, I've been able to communicate with the using my 2068. I've been able to communicate with the Pico and get files, at least get files opened and things on the SD card. So it's a really clunky and primitive interface, but at least it's proof of concept.
That's really cool, Jeff. That's awesome. I wanted to, so Stewart, Tim and I, Adam and I had a separate conversation about this video that Adam made with another friend of his, and it was about some electronic musicians, and Adam accidentally sent me the link to the wrong podcast, but as it turns out, it was kind of the right
serendipitously.
Podcast. What's that? Serendipitously.
Serendipitous,
yes.
yeah.
Exactly. So Stewart, you have talked about these circuit boards that you built prior to Zebra, right?
Right.
That did some music and stuff.
Right.
And crap.
They were very, very basic. Yeah, my first company, I was a play on my last name, Newfeld. Was New Tech Computer Systems.
So here we go. Okay, it took me a second to find it.
And
So all right.
Yeah, I did a couple. I did an S100 bus board.
Yep.
With a little speaker on it and a D to A.
Yep. Yep.
And I did a music box. I probably have one somewhere in the apartment, which I don't even remember. I think that was for a Coco or something. Yeah.
Okay. So let me tell you.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me tell you what Adam serendipitously sent me. He sent me a link to this Atari Podcast, where the person who does the podcast interviews Dorothy Siegel.
Oh, you're kidding.
I kid you not. And I start reading this thing, and she's talking about you, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Stewart.
Yeah, Dorothy's a very good friend. I worked briefly with her husband,
Mhm.
Michael Abram, who I was working for ADT Security Systems, designing fire alarm systems for high-rise buildings.
Mhm.
And Dorothy's husband, Michael, loved music and electronic music, but he couldn't get a job in that. So he briefly got a job for ADT. And then somebody offered him another job to work for, forget the name of the company, but he made all these wah-wahs and fuzz boxes and
Oh,
pedals.
Electro-Harmonics.
Yeah, Electro-Harmonics. So he went to work for head Electro-Harmonics, But I'm actually, the apartment I'm sitting in was actually because Michael and Dorothy lived a floor below in this apartment. I was looking for an apartment. So Dorothy, they bought a brownstone. So Dorothy lives about 8 blocks from here.
That's
I
awesome.
see her at least, she's at my summer house at least once every summer. And then I see her on the street when we park our cars for alternate side of street parking. And anyway, Dorothy was a music major. She majored in clarinet at Yale, I believe.
Mhm.
And so Michael and I were fooling with electronics, and I started this board. And Dorothy was not working because she had a young child, and but she had enough energy, and she helped me get these products done. And we had a friend who was a really good arranger who arranged, this music board was, it was like maybe an 8-bit D to A. It wasn't very sophisticated at all, but he arranged duets for clarinet and these boards, and they sounded great. I mean, when, because the clarinet had a complex waveform and wasn't, like metronomic. And I remember we once did a show in Philadelphia, a computer show, and it ended up, they interviewed us for TV. I had to explain to the TV audience in about 1978 how a computer made music. And everything I said was too complicated. So they dumb it down, and it made me understand to this day, anytime you see somebody on TV, whether it's a hurricane or it's in Ukraine or anything, you have to understand they may have talked to 5 people, and they may have had them repeat what they said. You're seeing the 4th take or the 8th take half the time because they want it to be very simple for TV or whatever, so it was very interesting. But yeah, I sold a few boards, and it was interesting. Yeah.
So Stuart, I'm going to share my screen, and everybody's going to get to see your board.
I probably have a couple of those under my house in the country. Yeah, it was very, very basic. It just,
Yeah, it's like a little 8-bit, like you said, D to A. Oh no, 6-bit. 6-bit. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Well, I think it was literally, I think on the right-hand side, I think it literally was an R2R ladder.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a
weren't even very high precision resistors. So I did a 6-bit or something, but music came out of it. And
yes, 6-bit latching.
Where did you find this?
Well, so Dorothy,
S100computers.com. Okay.
It's not just me, right? It's this came from the podcast page, which I shared in the in the chat. So you can go there and you can hear Dorothy, that you can hear Dorothy's playing along with, this is like a 4.5-minute recording of your boards and her playing. And then he talks to her about all of this stuff that you were talking about as well. It's absolutely fascinating. So if you have the remotest interest in electronic music, or computer-based music, computer-assisted music. This is a great podcast to listen.
This is how Al Hartman actually connected to me. I was selling these kind of products at the Atlantic City Trenton Computer Festival in New Jersey, which it used to be so exciting because they would take a whole parking lot and there'd be people selling, their used equipment out of the trunks of their cars and everything. Yep, I drew that.
Yep, the little R2R ladder right there.
It was pretty basic. Just, computer latched out something into this little,
into the amp, the op amp there, and there's the power supply.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And then Hal Chamberlain wrote an article about this. Hal Chamberlain wrote it. Oh, okay. So if you're not,
Hal was, you could say, he inspired me to do this. He was, I don't remember which computer he did it for, or whether it was standalone, but I saw him do it. And I said, oh, I could do that for an S100 bus, and that'd be fun. Yeah.
Well, and he wrote this thick, 1.5-inch thick book on, how to make music with computers back in the day. I have it down on my bookshelf. It's a great book because it's full of schematics, just like the one that that you did there.
Yeah, there was well, actually, Dorothy and Michael knew Moog personally. Bob Moog.
Moog, yeah.
The synthesizer, and there was a very active electronics hobbyist music synthesizer group. We used to go, and people had these unbelievable rat's nests of parts, and they were doing FM synthesis, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was pretty exciting in that day.
So it's funny you should mention Bob. There's a guy who used to live in Buffalo. I don't think he lives here anymore. His name was Gene Zumchek. And he was one of his very first jobs was working for Moog when they were in Trumansburg, just outside of Ithaca. And he worked on some of that early modular stuff. And then he left. He ended up designing this synthesizer and working for another guy who ended up buying Moog, and then moved Moog to suburban Buffalo. And then that synthesizer was issued as the Moog Sonic 6, I think. It's this weird sort of built into a plastic case thing that not a lot of folks have. But Gene was also very much into microprocessors. Al mentions that Hal was using the Kim 1, and Gene had a Kim 1 as well, and had another business selling add-on boards for the Kim 1, the 6502 processors, basically. So it's a really small world. And I see Joao joined us. How you doing, Joao?
Okay, just arrived from travel, and we'll be online in a video in 20 minutes or so. And I got the damn COVID, so trying to rearrange everything. But all good for now.
Excellent. So that was my moment I had to share with you.
Thank you.
I loved it. Well, see, when you
if you think David sounds excited now, like you should have seen the email I got from him. Like it wasn't all in caps, but it might as well have been. I was like, what is he talking about? Oh, okay, I get it.
There was a couple exclamation marks.
Well, I should bring up, we started talking about electronic music, and so it was just the day before yesterday, I went to my friend Brian's house and we went through his record collection a bit, and we had like an Atari user group meeting with 3 people, and we messed around with an ST and an Atari 800, and it was fun. Good time.
Very cool. All right. So I think we've run out of our agenda, Adam.
I don't have an agenda. This is all you, man. Don't look at me.
So now we're at the freeform moments.
Well, I wouldn't mind asking then if that's the case. Did anyone get a chance to listen to that video I posted of the voice synthesizer? for the 2068.
Oh,
I made
yeah,
a
I
video
did.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very basic, but it was, if anyone wants to hear what it sounds like, it's that's the way to do it. And because you don't want to load it
post
up
that link
yourself.
again in the chat?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
I'll
Yeah,
put that-
Adam, can you post that link to your
yeah,
video?
I can do that.
Okay,
I
cool.
guess. Let's see.
Well, and I did
let's
link
see.
to it from, I embedded the video in the page about the program.
So let's see. That
but
should
yeah,
be in there. Yeah. Hopefully it's linked to the right one. So.
But so you know, Adam, you asked a question about a piece of hardware that Tad sold, and
Well, let's back up and say who Tad is. Tad Painter
but,
is a person who wrote the software, the speech synthesizer 2068. Is that right?
yes,
That was called. Okay.
Yeah, and he wrote one for the 1000 before that, and there's a sort of real kind of harsh overtone quality to the sound, and that's a function of both the bit depth, that it's an 8-bit sample, and the sample rate. Both of those things contribute to make that weird, you know, sort of awful noise.
Well, what's hilarious to me about those videos is when you said that it sounded like I had a Texas accent, and then later on when my wife was looking at the video I made and I was showing, she's like, why does he have a Texas accent? And I was like, what? There's no Texas accent.
There is a Texas accent. It's a North Texas. I recognize it. I lived in Dallas.
Yeah, she's like, my family's from Texas. Of course I hear it. I was like, okay.
It's real subtle. I mean, if you're not listening for it, it's you can't catch it, but it's there.
But it was a fun little video to make. I got a little frustrated when I was trying to make my own sentence out of the speech, because it's set up to be used with a tape recorder. And I mean, while I could change the method that the author used to to set up the sentences from the, 273 different words, it's pretty clunky. And I was like, oh, I'll rewrite this to like make it so I can make a sentence. Sounds like, do I really want to do that? I've recorded the speech. I think I'll leave it at that, you know?
So I did have a question about that, Adam. So how is it that he tells you, how is it that you assemble words from the different library? Because the words aren't all in one.
Right. There's 5 different libraries.
Okay, so it's 5 different, right? 5 different libraries. So if you want a word from library 1 and a word from library 3 and a word from library 5, how do you assemble that?
Well, there's a separate program included on the tape. And by the way, that tape, I've tried everything on it. It all works. So
okay,
I don't know if you still have that little message that says on your page that said it might have bugs or whatever.
No,
I
I
don't
said
think
you were a miracle worker and you got it to work.
Oh, did you? Oh, well, that's not true, but it's, but it does work. But there's a program on there called Composer. And what you do is you load that in, then ask you some simple questions like, you have to have the list in front of you of all the words, and there's a list all on one page of all the words that are in all of the libraries. And so let's say you wanted word 6 from library 1 and word 70 from library 2 or something like that. To make your sentence, you have to rearrange it. And unfortunately, as you said, you can't spell Joy Division or New Order out of there. But you can arrange a sentence. And I tried doing it. I made a simple sentence. And then you would make it speak after you've arranged your own library and load up your own library. And then you can have it load up your custom library that you've created. The problem is the way the Composer works is it's assuming you can quickly load up a library, switch your tape real quick, like within a second, and then save out to tape. And while that might work sort of like haphazardly with real hardware, it's not easy to do under emulation for sure. And I haven't even been able to do it quick enough using my PC to save to a WAV file. So I could put a pause in there, but then I was like, I don't want to change the original software, and my sentence is just going to be pretty simple. It'll say something that doesn't matter anyway. I was like, I'm glad that I was able to put out the word list and have it speak. And if anyone's ever interested in listening to it, it's out there. And I would also be intrigued if anyone looked at how it is actually saved, and if someone could make it so you could save your own speech too. Because I guess there was a separate program that was sold that you could somehow save your own speech. I guess
Record
maybe
your-
you could hook up a spike or a microphone to the microphone port or something. I don't know how it would have worked, but I don't
Yeah,
think
you
that's
could sample
archived.
it. Actually, I think that there may be a program somewhere in one of the, newsletters or magazines about doing exactly that. Plugging a microphone into your. I'll have to do some digging around. Alan, you said that you thought he was trying to use allophones. He just recorded Tad. Tad recorded whole words, and he recorded 272 words.
Depends on how you look at it.
And so there's missing words, critical words like new and order and joy and division. So we can't make it say important things like Joy Division is the best band ever.
Right.
But we could make it say things, with a slight North Texas accent that are less impressive.
If you can jiggle and make your own library, make your own library, which, now that I'm saying it, it sounds like I should do that. I should invest some more time into that. But I'm like, I've kind of had my fun with that program. I'm going to move on to something else. So
I'm going to share the page real quick so that everybody can see your work here. So this is
what work is that?
This is the
that's
page.
right. You actually added all that to the your site, which is kind of neat.
So so this page started out with a little bit of information, and right. I mean, this particular sentence, for instance, suggests that you could record up to. It's actually one number higher than the number that's possible. Anyway, suggests that you could record 65K words and phrases. You didn't have enough. It would be impossible given the amount of memory. But Adam posted demos of all this stuff as MP3 files, which I uploaded to archive. And then here's Adam's video on the page. Where you can,
it looks kind of ridiculous looking at it in his video now because it's such a cheesy little thing that whatever.
Well, I mean, the program is, is kind of corny. So, and then, all these little documents that
it's neat that you were able to put all that together on one page.
I love it. I love that you did the work, and now we have this, this bit of amusement in our lives.
David, I want to add that when I worked on the Zebra Talker, a phone for the ZX81, it used a phoneme generating chip, and I was totally. It wasn't an original thought. It had been done on the Radio Shack color computer, so I just had to write the code, and so it was kind of a knockoff, I guess. But I was amazed the algorithm for converting text to speech was created by the National Bureau of Standards. It was public information. And it was so amazingly short and efficient that if, some words didn't, because English is not doesn't follow rules for pronunciation the way Spanish does, consistently. So some words don't work out, but I didn't have to write I was amazed how little code it took to transform the rules, the simple set of rules from the National Bureau of Standards to convert English words to phonemes. It's astonishingly short. I don't remember how many lines of code. It was very short.
Did you use the Votrax chip, the SCO1?
Yes.
Yeah. So that chip actually, it was one of the very first ones. And prior to that, it was, it was sort of developed as discrete hardware by this company called Federal Screw Works, and that they worked on that NIST standard that you're talking about. So that's why it worked so well, is because that chip was built for that standard.
Very smart linguists and people working on it, and it was amazingly efficient.
Yeah.
But when was that made? Like not the chip, but like when was this, back in the 70s or the 60s or what? Like
the SCO1?
Well, no, the actual standard. When did that come out?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
Was it done like before? It was done before personal computers, I imagine.
it's probably not that hard to find, you know. I don't know if they did it having computers, you know, not personal computers in mind, but that's a good question. I probably could find that document quickly. Yeah.
And there's a similar formula called SoundX, which you can use to reduce most English words to a single letter and 3 digits. And it doesn't turn the word into anything that, you know, can be pronounced, but what it lets you do is take a passage of text and convert it into these little tokens, as it were, and then it makes it easy to search the text for those things, like put stuff into a database, basically. And I don't know if that is related to the NIST standard, but it's kind of similar.
Back in the 80s, we were selling a little device that plugged in through a serial port that would do exactly that, the phonemes and the whole slightly side tangent, but we went to sell it to this guy who was a blind acupuncturist, and he had an audio board in his Apple that was done with WAV files, and so it was really clear. And we put the phoneme things on, and we played it to him. And he goes, "Close your eyes and see if you can understand what's being said." Because it was a screen reader on his Apple, he could actually drive the whole software from the with this voice thing. He could select bits of text, read off the screen. He did all his accounts and other stuff on it. But yeah, the phoneme thing was all right if you knew what it was saying. It wasn't great if you didn't, if you just selected things.
Yeah, it was it was brutal.
Yeah, in fact, when I was making that speech synthesizer 2068 video, I came like that close to like putting the speech word that was being said underneath it. Then I was like, wait, that's 200 words I have to, you know, put there. And if you can understand it, good for you. Yeah.
So Tim Swenson sent me that speech synthesizer dojigger that he demonstrated for us, and I cracked it open, and it is, in terms of its hardware, it's kind of actually similar to the what's it called, the speech there was a speech / music.
You know, David, there's probably people here who don't know what you're talking about, who weren't on that
all right.
meeting.
So Tim Swenson demonstrated, let me knock this screw out here. Okay, so Tim demonstrated this speech synthesizer unit, and I've opened it up, and you can see the speaker. It's got some crud in it, and what you can't see very easily because it's a little obscured, this is the speech synthesizer chip itself. I think that this may be a ROM or a RAM. I haven't had a chance to look at it. The speaker is glued to a microprocessor chip. It's a General Instruments microprocessor chip. And in terms of this design, it's very similar to a Radio Shack product for the color computer that had the same chip, the same microprocessor, but also had the same audio chip that's in the 2068, the AY38910. And so my guess is this may have been a standard design that General Instruments put out, because the Coco is a standard design that Motorola put out.
Right, that's kind of like how the Dragon is like similar.
Yes, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Plus this has a little serial port on it, but that's just some excellent addition to make it easy to use with all sorts of other devices. I don't know that I'm going to be able to hook it up to my 2068 until I build a serial port for the 2068.
Yes. Makes sense. Was there
I was just going to say, just an FYI, the AY8910, there's an emulator for that runs on a modern microcontroller, and I've built that up. It actually works quite well. It runs on a little AVR processor, so that you don't have to use the old chips.
Oh, that's right, the SoundGen. Yeah.
It's done by a Russian. It's called AVR-AY. It's a piece of software you just drop onto an AVR chip, and it'll emulate the 8910, the 8912. It just saves you having to have all hardware.
Yeah, we were talking about that. We were talking about a different version, a similar product. I don't know. In one of the prior meetings, there's a thing called the SoundGen, and it's also available. I can't remember the name of the other version. That is a PIC emulation of the SPO 256, which is in the thing that I was just showing. And Alan, I don't know if you guys caught that. Alan was showing the color computer Studier Candy Speech Sound Pack. Thank you. That I was talking about. I used to have one of those.
Yeah, I remember hearing, I don't know, last year or year before on the Coco show, a podcast for the Coco, obviously, I guess. They were talking about that device, and they were saying mostly it's all just software that does it, and the hardware in there, you can almost make it basically without that device, if I remember, something like that. And because I used to have one too, like back in the 90s when I had a little bit of everything from Goodwill, and you know, that's how it was. Everything was practically free back then. And but I never used it because, you know, I had so much stuff. So
what the nice thing about the 256 is that it did not require any real hardware experience to hook it up. There was an article in, I want to say, in Analog magazine back in the 80s that you know, described how to hook it up to an Atari 800 through the joystick ports, and I built it, and it worked fantastic. It was wonderful. And there was no you know, need for a PIC sitting in between the, you know, the Atari and the speech synthesis chip.
and you could do that because the Atari supported paddles, right? I guess
You could do
like,
that
and so
because,
you,
well,
so you had analog.
no
signal?
the reason that it worked is because you use the joystick ports as a byte wide data port.
Oh, okay.
So the joysticks were hooked up to the Pokey, maybe.
Yeah, yep, yeah, the IO chip.
Okay, and then you would just write to a memory address in order to set them as outputs, and then you would you know, you'd send out your allophones and wait for the SPO 256 to say, okay, I've spoken that thing, you know, send me another allophone.
Oh, so it was bidirectional? Like they would communicate back and forth?
Yeah, you have to monitor the SPO 256. You have to wait for it to tell it. Yeah,
oh, that's cool.
As Alan is saying, you have to pull the ready bit.
Oh.
It's a pain. Huh. Yes. I can't believe I'm pulling this stuff out of my head from.
It is so slow.
It is so slow. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
But we liked it that way.
But I'm getting
for video games, it's terrible because you can't wait for like a frame or a field interrupt or anything like that. You just have to kind of fire the sound event off into space, and you have no idea when you're going to be able to get back to it because the PIC takes forever to finish what it's doing and bring that ready bit back. And so if you're trying to play like background music or to generate other sound effect events, you really need a whole separate setup because that PIC is just going to sit there waiting on that speech chip forever. And on the Tandy design, this cart, that's one of the things people hate about it so much, is that they put the AY3 behind the PIC as well. It's not memory mapped. So you have to wait for everything, and you can't use it for like any kind of effective sound effects or anything like that if you're doing speech.
Yeah, the Orchestra 90 cartridge, which was just DDA converters, was much nicer.
That's the one I'm thinking about. I had the Orchestra 91. They look exactly the same in the picture. Jeez.
Well, but the Orchestra 90 played the William Tell Overture.
Did it? See, I never used it. I'd have to hear that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that was the demo built into it. Was the William Tell Overture, and you could, you know, sit there and.
That's right. You said you had a Coco back in the 80s, the Commodore 64. Yep. Apparently an Atari as well. I didn't know that. And the Timex 1000, the Timex 2068. Man, you couldn't make a decision.
So
how many here are still like that? Because I know
I see your Coco.
I've got Coco, MC10, Timex, Atari 1040, a couple of Amigas. Yeah, who wants to pick? There's too much fun to be had.
I dig your 2001 Space Odyssey poster in the background, by the way. Very cool. Very cool.
Very nice. All right. Was there anything else anybody wanted to chat about?
Something that we never get a chance to, now we have a few minutes to talk about it, is maybe we can actually say how like the tape archiving can work. Because like, you know, there were a couple of people, well, at least one person who said they had some tapes, although it seemed like maybe those tapes were his own here in the chat. How can we start putting that together?
That's a very good question. And actually, you guys remember Jacob Bullock, who wrote the ZX81 paint program? he is now one of us. He bought a 2068 and it came with a whole bunch of tapes. And I said to him, you know, he posted the picture on Facebook. And I was like, oh, I recognize things that are not archived, Jacob. So you need to get busy.
Yeah, you know, you say you can't think of things off the top of your head that aren't archived, but I think you can. I think you can.
Well, I mean, like you recognize one title that, you know, did not look familiar. But actually, he has both the Zeus assembler and the other tape, the disassembler, whatever.
Oh, and
I can't remember who was asking about that, but he has those. So hopefully we can get him to record those. So right. I think the easiest thing for folks to do is to record it just directly into the computer from a tape player, Adam? I mean, you guys.
Well, it depends. I mean, how many people like they get these tapes? For instance, does he have? Well, he does, because he demoed his program and he's been selling his program on tape. So on tape, I know he has the tape player, but most people who get these tapes don't anymore. Like they get this collection of tapes and they're either using software from a WAV file or they're using emulation. So the question is, if they want to archive it themselves, I guess they'd have to pick up a player and hopefully.
Oh, crap. Sorry.
Whoopsie. You don't want me to talk anymore. I get it.
No, I hit the wrong button. I was trying to hit the stupid participants button and I was in the wrong place.
But I guess the question comes down to the easiest method for someone who has a bunch of tapes. Should they send them off to someone? Do they trust the mail system? Do they, you know, like what is, that's the decision that has to be made. And if they do have a tape themselves, for me, the best way to do it is to try recording it to WAV file. And then there's a whole bunch of software out there that lets you try to make TZX files out of it or TAP files. And I mean, depending on your experience using command line interfaces, you can get it to work pretty good, but not everyone is willing to put the time into it. And you can also pre-process it and hopefully get it to work that way. But
so David Solly has sent me some WAV files. But right, the core problem that you get to is tape player, right? And
right, exactly.
And the fact that the tapes themselves kind of disintegrate and you lose what seems to happen most often is that little pad, that goes, you know, behind the playhead gets old or falls out or whatever. So maybe we can talk about this, you know, at the Monday meeting. We can start off talking about this on the Monday meeting. And
we should also talk about that Monday meeting is put off by a week, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, it's not put off by a week. It's the first Monday of the month, which it's always the first Monday of the month.
Let's see. Checking calendar.
Check your calendars. Check your calendars.
Okay, so it's the 6th.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay.
Right, because you know this month has like 5 weeks in it or something.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll learn that one year. I'm going to be 50 this year. By the time I'm 50, I'll know.
There you go. I mean, we're on the third week of May, and it's only the 15th, which struck me as
okay. Yeah, started on a Sunday.
On a first, right? Yeah. Exactly. So right, so we'll have a break of like 3-ish weeks as opposed to usually 2 weeks. Okay, so Alan says that in the Coco community, people with super high-end studio tape decks disassemble the shells, bake the tape to reconstitute the binder. Yeah, I've heard about the baking the tape when it comes to, you know, master tapes of audio, you know, multi-track.
We're talking the big tapes though. We wouldn't do that with a regular cassette, right?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it is the same physical medium, actually. You know, they cut it from the same plastic. It's all built the same. So it's,
well, I have the recipe. It's the oven for 550 for 2 hours, and you're good.
Oh, I don't want to see it at 550. That's the.
I'm kidding, of course. That's.
It's like a toaster oven at 160 for several hours or something.
Okay.
But
hours?
There
really?
are people that know that know that process really well. Though when you get those kinds of tapes, it's worth sending them to an expert who's baked their own tapes and burnt them far too often, so that they have figured out how to do it. A lot of tapes that you've stored, as long as they've been stored in a cool, dry place, if you take a pencil and stick it in the capstan and just turn it for a while and see if the tape drags or seems sticky.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then the binder may not have unset and stuck the whole tape together. You know, then it might be worth just trying to play it in your own recorder, and then that you just have to clean the record playback head every single pass, because the binder is shedding generally when you do a 35-year-old tape.
Okay, good point. All right, so
but just roll it slow with a pencil. You know, don't like put it in the tape deck and do a fast forward rewind. That's going to put way too much stress on the medium when you're trying to test it. But if you can turn it freely with a pencil, then you might be able to get away. I know I haven't done it since the 90s, but we used to also just fast forward the whole tape all the way through, then rewind it all the way back to retension the tape before trying to get a good record pass off of it.
Okay, that's good. So I actually have a couple old cassette tapes, and one is an accounting program, which probably would not be, you know, a huge loss if I was not able to record it. So, and I have a little, you know, cassette deck that I bought from Walmart. Walmart was selling cassette decks at one point in the past few years.
So it's quality. We know it's quality.
Oh, we know it's high quality. Yes. I mean, you know, I'd go to the Goodwill and get myself a nice deck from there. Maybe I should go looking at the local, you know, hardware repositories.
The trouble with the old tapes, the tape players, I mean, is you got to rebuild them. We have to replace the bands and all that stuff in them. And
that's true.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll try my Walmart special with this tape, and I'm going to do what Alan just said, which is, you know, gently you know, wind it forward and backward and see how it does. I know that the pad needs to be replaced, so I got to figure out how to replace it, because of this particular tape is not screwed. It's sonically bound, whatever the, you know, the
I think normally the easiest way to do that, David, is just to get a new case,
a donor body
case, and just throw it in there if you can.
I got some of those, also Walmart specials.
I want to bring up, we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know if there's any old business, new business. I don't know.
I don't
need to talk about.
I can't think of any old business. Anybody else have anything they want to tell?
David, you're saying about the sonic welded cases.
Yeah.
I've had a few things with that, and if you get a heavy handled screwdriver and hold it by the screwdriver, the metal end, and wrap it around, it'll actually it'll break the sonic weld. And I've opened transformers that have been sonically welded, all sorts of things, half a dozen things I've done like that. It's a great way of, you then don't have to Dremel around or whatever technique you want to use that damages it. You can then glue it back together when you finish.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
That works with the 2068 too. You just hit it with a screwdriver real hard, and the composite looks great. That's how you fix that picture signal.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for that tip.
That'll cure everything. All
Well,
right.
I'd like to throw one little new business, and that's to say howdy, hello to everybody. And to say a quick thank you to everyone here for everything y'all are doing to preserve the 2068.
Yep. And Alan, come back and join us next time. Okay.
Oh, I will.
Okay. All right.
I've been trying to, and my work projects have been just utterly horrible the past 7 months, and that hopefully is ending tomorrow.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, it could be hopefully around more.
And Ryan, you're gonna join us going forward? You're gonna make time in your life for us? Looks like you might have your local microphone turned off.
Ryan, you've got to come back. He's begging.
Yeah,
He's begging
we're
now.
begging. We're begging you, Ryan. Just give us a thumbs
Can
up.
you hear me
Ryan.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, the earbud mic wasn't working. Yeah, I'm going to try to make as many as I can, and it would be cool. It's kind of funny here that we got several New Mexico representatives.
Yeah. There's a density of you guys.
Yeah. And yeah, I was just trying to find a way to get see if how many of these old programs I could load off of these tapes, and it sounds like that might be quite a job trying to get that to happen. So yeah, I'd be really interested in that topic going forward.
Something that wasn't mentioned that we'll just take a second is usually get one chance or two chances, and then you can ruin the tape this year, not this year, this after that, and they're so old after all these years.
Right. And Tim, how does this time work for you? Because you're a bunch of hours different from us, right?
Yeah, we start at 6 a.m. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So we on Mondays we meet at 9 p.m.
Pacific time or
Eastern time.
Eastern time.
What would that be for you, Tim? Do you have any idea?
About 2 in the afternoon.
2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that.
And Tim, you're actually a day ahead of us, right? You're on the other side of the date line, aren't you?
You're okay. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's Monday. It's Monday there.
Oh,
indeed.
All right. So living in the future. All right. Cool.
This time, I
We're
mean,
time traveling on Zoom.
You don't have to, of course, do this around me, but this time for me, because from here, I have a quick lunch and I go to the library and I have a sci-fi book club meeting right after this. So
awesome.
Yeah, we're going to be talking Philip K. Dick's Valis today. So
I love that book.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I just finished it this morning. I'm like, gotta finish the book.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to work on Alan's suggestions with the tape and see if I can't get that accounting program so that everybody can do their accounting on the 2068. I think it was a tax return program.
I went through that trouble with the speed synthesizer. Maybe I'll use an accounting program. Just I'll be like, yeah, this is how it was in the 80s. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
This is how you do it. Yes. Yeah. So I'll work on that and hopefully be able to report back on that on the 6th. Is that right, Adam? Look at your physical calendar again.
The 6th. Yeah.
6th. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys.
You guys, it was good to join. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.